Welcome, weary traveler. You've left behind the noise of the world and stepped into a realm untouched by time. Here, candlelight dances upon ancient stone walls, and the air carries the soft hum of forgotten lullabies beyond these gates. The night is gentle, and every story is a silver thread, weaving warmth around your heart. So, rest your mind. Let each word be a quiet step into the halls of dreams, until sleep, tender and deep, finds you. You are safe here, and slowly, the world drifts away. Let's begin the dream. Chapter 1. The night I drifted beyond the candlelight. The night was quiet enough to hear the sound of my own breath, soft, even like the rhythm of distant waves against a sleeping shore. A candle flickered near my bedside, its flame dancing gently, as though it too was breathing in time with me. The air smelled faintly of lavender and old paper, a comforting scent that reminded me of forgotten summers and lullabies I once knew. I lay still beneath the linen sheets, their touch cool and smooth against my skin. Outside, a faint wind whispered through the shutters, carrying with it the sound of leaves sighing under the silver wash of moonlight. It was that kind of night where everything felt suspended, where time seemed to slow until even a single heartbeat could stretch into eternity. I turned my gaze toward the candle. Its flame bowed and straightened, bowing again, as if nodding to the rhythm of an invisible song. Shadows moved softly across the stone walls of my chamber, long, elegant, and patient. I watched them drift and blend, until the line between light and darkness blurred into one. Somewhere deep inside, a gentle drowsiness began to bloom. I closed my eyes, not entirely, just enough to let the candlelight seep through my lashes like liquid gold. The warmth that cast over my face felt alive, breathing, tender. And as I lay there, I began to feel that familiar pull, the slow descent into something deeper than rest, yet softer than dreaming. My breathing slowed, in and out. The candle swayed with each exhale, as though we were linked flame and flesh, light and life. A thought rose quietly within me, uninvited yet gentle. Perhaps the world only makes sense when it stops asking to be understood. With that thought, I let go a little more. The candlelight shimmered, then bent. The walls began to soften. The room itself began to hum, not with sound, but with stillness so complete it felt like a melody too delicate to be heard. The air thickened with warmth, and the flicker of flame became a doorway. I did not move. I simply felt myself being drawn toward it, as though my soul were floating on a slow current made of light. When I opened my eyes again, the room had changed. The candle still burned, but now its flame glowed with a silver hue, brighter and colder, like moonlight distilled into fire. The bed beneath me felt weightless. The floor, once made of stone, shimmered as if carved from glass. The world had not disappeared. It had merely softened, stretched, and become dreamlike, as though I had slipped into the space between waking and sleep. I sat up slowly, my breath forming clouds that glittered before fading. The window, which moments ago looked out over a quiet courtyard, now opened into something vast, a night that seemed endless, sprinkled with stars so close I could almost touch them. Beyond the window, a path unfolded, woven of mist and starlight. It wound through floating lanterns, that drifted like slow fireflies. Each one pulsed faintly, in rhythm with my heartbeat. I could hear water somewhere far below, its murmur distant yet familiar. I rose, feeling neither fear nor surprise. In this soft, endless night, everything felt right, inevitable, peaceful. I stepped forward, and the floor met my feet like a sigh. When I crossed the threshold of the window, the world accepted me. There was no fall, no jolt, just the gentle sensation of being carried, as though unseen hands guided me through the quiet air. The night wrapped itself around me like silk. The candlelight behind me dimmed, and I found myself standing upon the starlit path. Each step shimmered underfoot, rippling like water. The air was filled with whispers, not words, but the hush of dreams, voices of those asleep, murmuring softly through the fabric of night. I walked, slowly, breathing in the rhythm of it. Each exhale dissolved a little more of the waking world behind me. The lanterns swayed as I passed, their glow brushing against my hands like affectionate spirits. When I looked closer, I saw faint reflections inside them, tiny sleeping figures curled in peace. Some looked like children, others like old souls resting between worlds. Their faces glowed faintly, serene, untouched by time. A feeling of stillness welled in me, a deep anchored calm I hadn't felt in years. The longer I walked, the lighter I became, until it felt as though I were gliding, barely touching the luminous path beneath my feet. The air carried the scent of rain that never fell, of pine and night flowers, of things both remembered and imagined. Somewhere ahead, I heard a low hum, a tone that seemed to vibrate within the heart rather than the ear. It was the sound of peace itself, slow and eternal. I followed it until the path widened into a clearing of light. In the center stood a pool, not of water, but of pure reflection. It mirrored the stars above perfectly, as though the heavens had bowed to kiss their own image. I knelt beside it. My reflection shimmered. Not quite me, not entirely human, but softer, lighter, more luminous. My eyes in the reflection seemed to carry galaxies within them. I reached toward the surface, and when my fingertips touched, the pool rippled, spreading rings of silver light outward, dissolving the boundary between above and below. The reflection smiled back, a gentle, knowing smile, and whispered, though no lips moved, "You finally slowed down enough to listen." The words didn't startle me. They sank into me like warmth spreading through cold fingers. And in that moment, I realized something. The world, this vast, aching, beautiful world, was never meant to be understood by thought or reason. It was meant to be felt, like this, quietly, deeply, as if in a dream. The reflection began to fade, and the light of the pool dimmed, but the warmth within me remained. I lay beside it, resting my head against the cool, glowing earth. Above, the stars drifted slowly, endlessly. My breathing matched their pace, slow, steady, infinite. Somewhere far behind me, the candle in my room still burned, unseen but faithful, marking the threshold between what I once knew and what I was now becoming. The world had not vanished. It had merely revealed its gentler truth. And as my eyes closed completely, the last thing I felt was the whisper of light tracing over my skin, like the world itself exhaling. At peace, finally making sense. Let's drift deeper into the dream. Chapter 2: The Garden Between Waking and Dreaming. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on soft earth. Dew clung to my palms like tiny pearls, cool and alive. The air was thick with the fragrance of night-blooming flowers, sweet, faintly honeyed, carrying whispers of water and wind. Somewhere nearby, a brook sang softly to itself, the kind of song that doesn't need words to be understood. I sat up slowly. Around me stretched a vast garden glowing under the silver hush of moonlight. It was neither wild nor tamed, a place untouched by time. Petals glimmered in every hue the night could hold. Deep indigo, gentle violet, pale gold. Leaves shimmered like spun glass, and the air was filled with drifting motes of light, not fireflies, but something softer, like fragments of forgotten dreams. The sky was both near and far, a living ceiling that breathed in rhythm with the garden below. I could feel it, that pulse of unity, everything inhaling and exhaling as one. Even the earth beneath my knees seemed to hum faintly, the heartbeat of something vast and peaceful. For a while, I didn't move. I simply breathed, in and out. My body rose and fell with the garden's rhythm. It was as though I had become another leaf, another petal, another quiet part of this breathing world. A narrow path wound before me, lined with low lanterns that burned with golden white light. Their flames did not waver in the breeze. They pulsed gently, alive in their own stillness. I stood, drawn toward them as one is drawn toward warmth in the dark. My bare feet sank into the soft soil, the touch of the earth grounding yet impossibly light dot as I walked. I began to notice how every flower seemed to turn slightly toward me, as if acknowledging a familiar traveler. Some opened wider when I passed, releasing faint murmurs of sound sighs, hums, notes of music too delicate for waking ears. It was not a place made of silence. It was made of gentle sound, the kind that soothes rather than fills, the kind that reminds the heart of how it once felt to be safe. Halfway down the path, I saw an archway formed of woven vines. Moonlight filtered through it like a curtain of liquid silver. At its base lay a pool, small and circular, with water so clear it looked like glass. Floating upon its surface were pale lilies, each one cradling a drop of light within its center. Tiny stars resting in petals. I knelt beside the pool. My reflection shimmered again, softer than before. The eyes staring back at me no longer seemed entirely my own. They were calmer, almost ancient, like the gaze of someone who has seen the edges of dreams. A faint ripple disturbed the surface, and I looked up across the pool. Beneath the archway stood a figure dotted first. I thought it was a shadow, for its form was woven of mist and moonlight. But then it moved slowly, fluidly, and I saw that it was cloaked in flowing robes, the color of twilight. No face was visible, only a gentle glow where eyes might be. The figure spoke, though its voice was not carried by air, but by the space between breaths. It was neither male nor female. It was the voice of stillness itself. "Welcome," it said, the sound as soft as falling petals. "You have stepped beyond the candlelight." Few do. I bowed my head without knowing why. The gesture felt natural, instinctive. "Where am I?" I whispered. "In the garden between waking and dreaming," the voice replied. "Here, all things rest. Here, what was forgotten remembers itself." The words sank deep into me. Am I dreaming? A pause, then a slow, serene answer. "You are remembering how to dream." The figure lifted a hand. From its palm, a soft radiance unfolded, a sphere of light, pulsing like a heartbeat. This garden was not made for escape, it continued, but for listening. Every leaf here carries a truth you once knew but have forgotten in the noise of the waking world. I felt something stir inside a memory I couldn't quite reach. Listen, the figure whispered, and I did. The garden responded. The air shifted. The brook sang more clearly. Beneath the surface of sound, I heard words, not from the figure, but from the garden itself, a language made of rhythm and feeling rather than speech. It spoke of stillness, of belonging, of the simple grace of being. Each note sank into my chest, dissolving a weight I hadn't realized I carried. Worries, thoughts, fears, they loosened, floated up, and melted into the starlit air. I felt tears rise, not of sorrow, but release. The figure watched quietly. To dream, it said, is to return home. Its light flickered, dimmed slightly. When the world outside becomes too loud, you may walk this path again. But remember, the dream does not belong only to the night. Carry its stillness into the dawn. Then, like mist caught by a soft breeze, the figure began to fade. Its final words lingered. Peace does not find those who chase it. It waits for those who slow down enough to hear it breathe. The space where it had stood shimmered once, then stilled. I looked back down at the pool. My reflection smiled again, this time without sadness. Around me, the flowers had opened wider, glowing faintly, their light mirrored in my skin. For a long while, I remained by the pool, watching the stars drift across its mirrored surface. Each movement of light felt like a lullaby written in slow motion. I reached out to touch one of the lilies, and when I did, the glow spread along my fingertips like moonlight following a river's course. A warm wind brushed through the garden, and for a moment I thought I heard the figure's voice again, blending with the rustle of leaves. Breathe, and the world will make sense again. I lay back upon the grass, the earth cool and tender beneath me. The stars above shimmered softly through the canopy of leaves, their glow swaying like lanterns in a gentle current dot. As my eyes grew heavy, I realized I could no longer tell where the garden ended and the dream began. It didn't matter. The two had become one, a single breath stretching across time. And as sleep deepened within the dream itself, I felt the pulse of the world, slow, vast, forgiving, moving through me. Beautiful, we drift onward into the next layer of the dream. Chapter 3. The River of Remembering. The first sound I heard was water, not rushing, not roaring, but flowing with a rhythm older than time. It whispered and hummed, a low lullaby winding through the quiet air. When I opened my eyes, I found myself standing beside a river that glowed faintly beneath the moonlight. Its surface shimmered like molten glass, reflecting the sky above in trembling silver ripples. Mist drifted along the banks, soft as breath, and willows leaned over the water, their branches swaying in slow unison, trailing their fingers through the glowing current. The air smelled of moss and memory, a scent both familiar and unreachable, like a song I'd once known in another life. The ground beneath my feet was cool and damp, cushioned by moss that gave softly with every step. I listened to the river, to the way it sighed and paused, the way it carried silence between its murmurs. It felt alive, sentient, as though it remembered every voice that had ever spoken near it. I followed the sound downstream, walking slowly. My reflection followed beside me, glimmering faintly in the shifting light. But sometimes, only for a heartbeat, the reflection would change. A different face would appear, younger, older, softer, sometimes with eyes full of wonder, sometimes full of tears. Each glimpse faded before I could fully see. It was as though the river was showing me versions of myself. I had forgotten pieces of who I had been. Scattered across time, the path wound gently, bordered by white flowers that swayed in rhythm with the water. Every few steps, a faint sparkle would rise from the surface of the river, a tiny orb of light, lifting, pulsing, then dissolving into the air like a sigh. They were memories, I realized. The river was not water at all. It was remembrance, the collective dream of every heart that had ever longed for peace. As I knelt beside the glowing current, I could see images shifting within it, hands reaching for one another, children laughing under twilight skies, old souls closing their eyes beneath candlelight, breathing their last breath with a smile. The river carried it all, the softest joys, the quietest endings, the fragile beauty of existing. I reached out, my fingers brushing the surface. The moment I did, warmth spread through me, not heat, but memory. I saw flashes, a forgotten morning, sunlight spilling over stone walls, laughter echoing down a corridor, a hand brushing mine in farewell. A single tear escaped down my cheek, but it felt cleansing, not sorrowful. The river whispered, "You have never been lost, only drifting." The words rippled through my chest like a heartbeat. I stood and followed the flow again, deeper into the valley. The mist grew thicker, wrapping me in cool silver. The moon above was now a pale coin behind clouds, its light softening everything into dreamlike shapes. Soon I came upon a bridge, an ancient arch of marble and ivy that spanned the width of the glowing river. It was cracked, but still whole, and from its stones came a faint hum, like the memory of music long forgotten. As I stepped onto it, the world seemed to hold its breath. Each footfall sent gentle ripples through the air. I paused at the center of the bridge and looked down. Beneath me, the river shone brighter, and in its depths, I saw scenes from my own life. Not all were beautiful. Some carried pain, moments of worry, loss, loneliness. Yet even those were bathed in that same silvery calm, as if the river forgave them simply by remembering. And then I saw a small version of myself, a child, standing by a candle's glow, staring out a window at the night sky. I remembered that night. I had whispered to the stars, asking if they could hear me, asking why the world felt so loud and so distant. Now, from above the bridge, I watched that same child smile faintly, because the stars did answer, though it took years for me to hear them. The river whispered again, softer now, like a mother's hum at the edge of sleep. Even sorrow holds its own light, if you let it rest long enough. I leaned over the railing and exhaled. The breath turned to mist and drifted down into the current, joining it. My reflection smiled back, no longer fragmented. When I stepped off the bridge, the path curved gently upward, and the mist began to thin. The sound of the river faded, replaced by a deep, resonant silence that felt sacred, alive. Ahead, I saw the faint outline of a small grove. The trees there glowed faintly blue, their bark etched with flowing lines of light that pulsed like veins. At their base, the river widened into a small pool, perfectly still. In the center stood a stone, half submerged, its surface carved with a symbol, a circle within a circle. Like ripples in time, drawn by instinct, I waded into the shallow water. It was warm, not cold, wrapping my legs in silken heat. When I reached the stone, I placed my hand upon it. The lines of the carving flared, spreading light through the water until the whole grove shimmered like the heart of a star. And then I heard it, the sound of my own heartbeat merging with the river's. One, then the other, then one again. It was as if the world and I were breathing together. I felt no need to speak, no question to ask. Everything that needed to be known was already known, already understood in silence. The water began to still once more, and I stood quietly as the light dimmed back into silver. The carvings on the stone faded, leaving only a faint warmth beneath my palm. When I turned to leave, I noticed the river had changed direction. It now flowed both ways at once, forward and back, as if time itself were circular, gently looping, always returning home. I stood at its edge for a long while, watching the ripples fold into one another, breathing in their rhythm. And as the mist began to gather once more, I realized something deep and wordless. This dream wasn't showing me another world. It was showing me the hidden peace within the one I already lived. When I finally stepped away from the river, my feet left no prints. The air shimmered faintly, and somewhere far ahead, I saw a faint golden light, the next place, calling softly, patiently, and I followed. We drift now into the deeper quiet, where stars remember what words forget. Chapter 4. The library of quiet stars, the golden light I'd seen beyond the river, grew brighter as I walked. It was not harsh or dazzling, but soft and pulsing, like a heartbeat in the distance. The air around me shimmered, thick with particles of silver dust. Each step I took seemed to ripple through the space between things, creating small echoes of light that faded slowly behind me. The mist lifted, revealing a vast hall unlike anything I had seen before. It was not built of stone or wood, but of starlight woven into arches and domes. The ceiling stretched so high it vanished into constellations. Endless shelves spiraled upward, each one carved from threads of light. Upon them rested countless orbs, some faint and quiet, others glowing brightly, each pulsing gently as though alive. This was no ordinary library. It was a library of souls. The silence here was not empty, it was full. It hummed faintly, like the low vibration of the universe breathing in its sleep. I stepped inside with reverence, feeling as though I had entered the very heart of memory itself. The moment I crossed the threshold, a soft voice spoke, though no one was there. "Be still, traveler. You walk among dreams that chose to remember." The words floated through me like mist, warm and calm. I nodded instinctively, though I didn't know to whom. I walked slowly between the shelves, each glowing orb radiated a different hue, some blue, some gold, some pale white, and as I passed them, faint sounds emerged. A laugh, a sigh, a song sung by a voice I couldn't see. Each orb was a story, perhaps a life, a fragment of thought or feeling captured in the silence of eternity. One in particular drew me closer. It was small, faintly pink in color, and flickered as though breathing softly. When I reached out, it drifted toward me, hovering just above my palm. Within it, I could see faint shapes, a child spinning in a meadow, arms open to the wind, sunlight pouring over their face. I could almost feel their joy, that weightless laughter that belongs only to those who still believe the world is kind. The orb pulsed once, sending a gentle warmth through my skin, and I felt something inside me stir, a faint echo of that same laughter, a memory that had long been buried under years of quiet worry. The voice returned, softer now. Every star remembers the moment it was born. Every soul remembers joy, even when it forgets its name. I placed the orb back upon its shelf. It shimmered once, brighter than before, as though grateful to be remembered. As I wandered deeper, I noticed that the light grew warmer. The shelves here were older, the glow gentler. Some orbs flickered weakly, their light fading, not from neglect, but from peace. They had told their story, and now they rested. At the end of the corridor stood a great circular table made of transparent crystal. Upon it lay a single open book, its pages blank yet luminous, as if written in invisible ink. The moment I approached, faint symbols began to appear, curling lines of gold that formed words, though not in any language I recognized. Still, I understood them. They were feelings turned to form, thoughts shaped by stillness. I placed my hand upon the page, and the words shifted. You came seeking sense, but sense is only the shadow of peace. When the world stops making sense, it begins to speak in truth. I read the words aloud, slowly, softly, and with each syllable, the air vibrated. The stars above the library seemed to pulse in rhythm with my voice. When I finished, the book turned its own page. More words appeared, glimmering faintly. What you call sleep is the body's way of remembering the silence before you were born. What you call dream is the soul's way of remembering what it truly is. I felt my heart slow. The words moved through me like music, dissolving thought. I closed my eyes, letting them settle deep within. Then a rustle of motion from behind one of the shelves. A figure emerged. It was not made of flesh, but of faint starlight, shifting like smoke in a gentle breeze. Its eyes were two orbs of calm silver, and its expression carried the serenity of something that had never known fear. You are the keeper? I asked, though my voice came out as a whisper. The being inclined its head. One of many, it said, its tone smooth as water. The library has no walls, no borders. It exists wherever memory meets stillness. You have walked into it because you have slowed down enough to see it. I nodded slowly. What is kept here? The being's eyes glowed faintly brighter. Moments. Every one of them. Every breath, every heartbeat, every kindness whispered in the dark. The universe forgets nothing. It simply waits until you are ready to remember. It turned slightly, gesturing to the shelves. Even you are here, it said. A chill of gentle awe passed through me. Me? Yes, the being said, and pointed. Near the edge of the hall, I saw a small orb flickering in deep blue light. I approached it slowly. Inside, I saw myself lying in my own bed, candle burning beside me, eyes half closed, whispering to the darkness when I slept. The world finally made sense. I exhaled, the realization washing over me like warm rain. The orb pulsed gently, mirroring my heartbeat. The being smiled faintly. Dreams are not escapes. They are mirrors, polished clean by stillness. The world you see there is not different. It is simply revealed. Its words felt like light dissolving within me. I looked around at the infinite shelves, the quiet stars, the living silence that held them all. For the first time, I understood this library was not a place to seek answers. It was a place to remember peace. The being's form began to fade back into the light, its voice softening as it vanished. Rest, traveler. The stars have written your name in silence. Remember that, and you will never be lost. When I looked again, the hall was empty. The book on the table closed itself, and the pages turned to light before dissolving into the air. The orbs around me pulsed once, a single shared heartbeat, and then stilled. The light dimmed gently, and the silence deepened until I could hear nothing but my own breathing, slow and calm. When I finally turned to leave, I saw a door made entirely of shadow and starlight standing open at the far end of the hall. Beyond it shimmered a golden horizon, warm, distant, inviting. And as I stepped through, I felt the stars behind me whisper farewell, not in words, but in peace. The dream deepens now, flowing onward. Time itself softens beneath your feet. Chapter 5. The Bridge of Soft Time, the Golden Horizon. I had glimpsed through the starlit doorway stretched before me like a sea of light. I stepped across its threshold, and the cool hush of the library dissolved behind me, replaced by a deep, living warmth like sunlight filtered through honey and memory. For a moment, I couldn't tell if I was walking or floating. The ground beneath me shimmered as though made of light trapped inside water, soft and rippling with every step. The air was golden and thick, filled with drifting motes that pulsed in slow rhythm, the heartbeat of time itself. Ahead lay a vast expanse, neither sky nor land, but something between. It curved endlessly in all directions, its horizon bending like a gentle breath. And there, suspended in the middle of that radiant stillness, stretched a bridge. It was impossibly long and impossibly delicate, woven from strands of light that gleamed like silk spun from dawn. Each strand hummed faintly, like the low tone of a distant bell. I stood before it, feeling both reverence and a quiet, weightless wonder. Something in the air whispered, "This is the bridge between what was and what will be. Walk gently, for each step is a heartbeat of time." I inhaled slowly, the breath tasting faintly of rain and warmth. Then, with quiet certainty, I stepped forward. The bridge sang beneath my feet, a sound both familiar and forgotten, as though every step released the echo of lives lived and dreams dreamed. Each thread glowed where I touched it, lighting the path ahead in slow pulses of gold. I walked with unhurried grace, my pace matching the rhythm of my breath in and out. Step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat below me, if below even existed in such a place, I saw layers of time unfolding like veils in the wind. Scenes shimmered in the golden haze, fragments of worlds overlapping like ripples, a child releasing a lantern into a night sky, a woman writing by candlelight, an old man closing his eyes beneath an oak tree. They all felt like echoes of one endless story, and somehow I sensed they were all me, or at least parts of me scattered through time's soft weave. The bridge itself seemed to breathe with me. Each inhale expanded it, stretching farther into light. Each exhale softened its edges, blurring past and future together as I walked. The hum deepened and the light began to shift. Now it glowed not golden, but silver blue, the color of still water beneath moonlight. The air grew cooler. The sound of my heartbeat blended with the bridge's pulse until they were one. And then a voice the same calm, timeless voice that had guided me before, rose softly from the air. Time is not a line, but a tide. You do not move through it. It moves through you. The words were slow and warm, like light folding round itself. Each breath is a wave returning to the same eternal shore. You are both the shore and the sea. I paused, feeling the truth of it bloom within me. Every memory, every moment, all of it coexisted here, alive, luminous, endlessly returning. I looked down through the bridge's light once more. The golden haze parted slightly, revealing rivers of color flowing beneath deep blues, soft greens, quiet amber. Within them moved shapes of things I had known, places I had walked, faces I had loved, moments I thought had vanished, but they hadn't. They were still here, flowing in the gentle current of time that carried everything home. The bridge trembled faintly beneath my feet, not from instability, but as though it were breathing with me, alive, aware, patient. I continued onward. The further I walked, the softer the world became. Edges melted into haze, sound blurred into silence, and even my own form seemed to shimmer, dissolving into light and air. Time here had no measure. A minute felt like a century like a sigh. Eventually, the bridge widened, forming a great circular platform suspended in the golden mist. In its center burned a single sphere of light, not bright, not blinding, but pure. It pulsed gently, like the first heartbeat of creation. I stepped toward it, drawn by a quiet knowing. When I stood before it, I realized it was not a sun or a star, but a memory, the memory of the first moment I ever felt peace. I didn't know when that was, but my soul remembered. It recognized the feeling before my mind could name it. As I reached out my hand, the sphere responded, opening like a flower, unfolding layer by layer until I saw within it a small, still seen, a younger version of myself, lying beneath a tree at dusk. A sky fading from blue to violet, the sound of wind whispering through tall grass, a feeling of perfect safety. Tears rose, not from sadness, but from something far deeper, the ache of remembering what it meant to belong completely to a moment. The voice returned, soft as dusk light. You thought peace was something you lost, but peace is not found, it is remembered. The golden air trembled around me, shimmering with warmth. The sphere of light began to dissolve, its glow flowing through my fingertips, up my arm. Into my chest, I felt it settle behind my ribs, pulsing in rhythm with my heart. And suddenly, I understood the bridge was not just a path. It was a reflection of the heart's own rhythm, the soft thread connecting all moments together. Every memory, every sorrow, every joy, All of it flowed in this endless tide, woven together by breath and kindness. The hum of the bridge deepened, then began to fade, and I knew it was time to move on. As I took my final step off the golden platform, I looked back once more. The bridge shimmered softly, then slowly unraveled into a stream of light, flowing into the mist until it became one with the air. I felt no loss, only peace, as though I had walked across the breath of time itself and come to rest in its still heart ahead of me. The mist parted gently, revealing another doorway, this one framed by vines of moonlit silver. Beyond it glowed the faintest trace of a garden, and I could hear a familiar sound. The rustle of leaves, the sigh of wind through distant branches, and beneath it all, a quiet voice, almost inaudible now, whispering through the light, "Go gently, dreamer. You are learning how to listen to forever." I stepped forward, carrying the warmth of the bridge within me. The golden air folded softly around my shoulders like a shawl, and the world, once again, began to breathe. The dream drifts on each breath slower, softer, as though time itself exhales. Chapter 6. The moonlit orchard of forgotten names. The silver doorway opened soundlessly, like mist parting for dawn. Beyond it lay a vast orchard, bathed in pale moonlight. Every tree shimmered with leaves of liquid silver, their branches gently sighing in the night breeze. The air was cool and fragrant, a mix of earth, memory, and something faintly sweet, like pear blossoms touched by dew. I stepped inside, the grass whispering softly beneath my bare feet. The moment I crossed the threshold, everything around me seemed too quiet. Even the air stopped moving for a breath, as though the orchard itself had noticed my arrival. And then, it began to hum. Not loudly, not like a song, but softly, deeply, like the heartbeat of an ancient forest remembering its name. Each tree pulsed faintly with light, and I could feel it through the soles of my feet, a rhythm both foreign and familiar. I walked slowly between the silver trunks. The bark shimmered with faint veins of light, and as I brushed my hand against one, the surface rippled like water. A faint warmth spread through my fingertips, and a voice, no louder than a sigh, whispered from within the bark, "Do you remember me?" I froze, my breath caught between wonder and confusion. The tree waited, still, patient, luminous. Then I heard it again, softer this time. "You promised to come back." My heart ached with something I couldn't name. I pressed my palm against the trunk, feeling it thrum with quiet life. Images flickered behind my eyes. A child playing beneath this very tree, laughter echoing like wind chimes. A woman gathering fallen petals. A shadow of someone I had loved, standing beneath a moon like this one. But it was all mist. I couldn't catch it. It slipped away before I could remember. The voice faded back into the bark, and the light dimmed, leaving only the soft rustle of silver leaves. As I continued through the orchard, more whispers surrounded me, gentle, half-formed voices carried on the wind. "You once knew me. You planted us. You named us all." Their tones weren't more but tender, as though forgiving me for forgetting. And that's when I realized what this place was. An orchard grown from memories I had let go. Every tree was something or someone I had loved once but could no longer recall. They had rooted themselves here, in this timeless garden, quietly waiting for me to remember. I stopped before one particularly large tree at the center of the grove. Its branches arched wide, heavy with pale fruit that glowed like moons. Each fruit was translucent, swirling faintly with light. As I reached toward one, the tree spoke, not with words this time, but with feeling. Warmth spread through my chest, a rush of gentle familiarity. It was as if I had touched a part of myself I thought was gone forever. The fruit trembled, then fell softly into my hands. Its surface was cool and smooth, and when I held it up to the light, I saw within it a tiny reflection, not of my face, but of another moment. It was me, much younger, sitting beside someone beneath the stars, tracing constellations with a finger in the air. I couldn't hear our voices, but I could feel the laughter, the warmth, the love that had existed there, and I whispered, almost to myself, I remember now. The fruit shimmered once more, then dissolved into light, flowing through my fingers and into the soil below. The tree gave a long, soft sigh, as though finally at peace. A gentle wind moved through the orchard then, carrying 1,000 whispers that blended into a single melody, the song of everything I had ever loved returning home. It wasn't a sad sound. It was beautiful, peaceful, whole. The moon above brightened, bathing the entire orchard in a silvery glow so soft it felt like being inside a dream of light. Every tree shone with renewed brilliance, their roots glowing faintly beneath the ground, connecting one to another in a vast network of luminous veins. I realized then that this garden was alive in a way few things are, not with years, but with remembrance. Nothing here was lost. Nothing ever truly is. I knelt in the grass, feeling its coolness against my palms. Beneath my touch, the earth pulsed gently, not with sound, but with memory, as if the soil itself held the soft imprint of everything that had ever mattered. And then, faintly, a new voice rose from behind me, clear, warm, and achingly familiar. You kept your promise. I turned, and standing there was a figure made of soft light, not solid, not ghostly, but something between. Their face shifted between ages, like a candle flickering through memories. I didn't know their name, but my soul did. It recognized them instantly, the same way the heart remembers the rhythm of an old lullaby. They smiled, eyes shimmering like moonlight on still water. You left so much behind, but nothing left you. It all waited. Even me. Tears filled my eyes, slow and soundless. I tried to speak, but no words came. The figure only nodded, understanding. Then they stepped closer, placing their hand gently against my heart. The touch wasn't cold or warm, it was real. Everything you have ever forgotten still remembers you, they whispered. And as they spoke, the orchard bloomed, silver blossoms unfurling all at once, falling like snow made of light. The air filled with their scent, delicate and sweet. When I blinked, the figure was gone, but their warmth lingered in my chest, pulsing like a quiet echo of home. The orchard's hum softened to silence. The moonlight dimmed to a tranquil silver blue, and I knew it was time to leave. I looked back one last time at the trees shimmering with remembered love, the blossoms drifting down like dreams, the soft earth glowing with light. Then I followed the faint sound of water, a gentle stream winding through the orchard, glowing faintly in the moonlight. It led toward a new horizon, where the mist opened once again to reveal another door. This one framed with flowing light like ripples in a pond. I took a breath that felt like gratitude, like release. And as I stepped forward, the wind whispered through the trees behind me, "Remember what remembers you." The silver leaves rustled a final farewell, and the orchard faded into mist, leaving only the soft glow of the next dream calling me onward. The dream deepens. Each breath feels like floating, each heartbeat a gentle ripple through eternity. Chapter 7. The river that dreamed of stars. The mist parted softly, revealing a silver horizon where water met the sky without boundary. I stood at the edge of a great river, not the river of remembering I had crossed before, but something far vaster, quieter and older. Its surface was perfectly still, like glass, yet when I listened, I could hear it breathing. Every rise and fall of that breath shimmered with tiny pinpricks of light stars, hundreds of them floating gently upon the surface. They drifted and swirled like fragments of constellations scattered into the water. Each time the current sighed, the stars shifted their pattern, forming new constellations that pulsed faintly with life. The air was cool and fragrant, touched by the scent of rain long past. 1,000 soft ripples lapped against the shore in whispers, their rhythm slower than time. Above me, the sky mirrored the water below so perfectly that it was impossible to tell where reflection ended and reality began. I felt suspended between two heavens, one above, one beneath. The river that dreamed of stars stretched endlessly in both directions. I knew instinctively that it wasn't meant to be crossed. It was meant to be listened to. I knelt at the shore, resting my fingertips against the water's edge. The moment I did, the river stirred not in alarm, but in recognition. Tiny waves shimmered outward, and one of the floating stars drifted toward me. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat, before settling in my palm. It was warm, almost alive. Within its light, I could see something moving, faint and fluid, like smoke curling through crystal. Then came the voice. "Do you remember what the stars once told you?" It was gentle, neither male nor female, but the voice of the river itself, flowing through me like wind through hollow stone. I didn't answer aloud. I only breathed. The river seemed to understand. "They said you were made of the same light," it murmured. "But you forgot when you began counting time instead of listening to it." The words drifted through me, deep and slow. And then, as if in reply, the surface of the river began to shimmer with movement. Images formed within the water, the sky of another lifetime, filled with stars so bright they cast shadows upon the grass. I saw myself lying there, years or centuries ago, tracing constellations with my hand. I had once believed the stars whispered stories to anyone who was quiet enough to hear. Perhaps I had been right. The reflection rippled, and the scene changed. Now I saw countless others' faces I did not recognize, but somehow knew. Each one sitting by the same river, in different eras, different worlds, gazing at the same mirrored sky. The river remembered them all. It carried their dreams like gentle offerings, letting them become part of its light. It was then I understood. This river did not simply dream of stars. It was the dream of the stars themselves. Each drop of water held a memory of something that once shone, once lived, once loved. The river flowed through eternity, gathering light where life left off, carrying it forward so that no dream ever truly faded. A warm breeze brushed my hair as I rose to my feet. I stepped forward, and though the water looked deep, my foot found steady ground, glowing faintly beneath the surface. The river welcomed me. Each step sent a small ring of light outward, joining the drifting constellations. Stars turned beneath my feet as I walked, swirling around my ankles like curious fireflies. The sound beneath them was not liquid, but music, a harmony so delicate I could barely perceive it, like the hum of distant galaxies. When I reached the middle of the river, I stopped. Above me, the night sky mirrored the water below perfectly. I was standing between two infinities, both alive, both dreaming. And then the stars began to move. Slowly, they formed shapes, first a spiral, then a pair of open hands, then an eye that blinked softly before dissolving again. The river whispered, "Every dream you have ever had was never yours alone. The stars dream through you, and through all who dare to rest their hearts in wonder." A soft tremor of emotion rose within me, not sorrow, not joy, but something in between. It was awe, the kind that silences every thought and fills the heart with light. I tilted my head back, breathing in the vastness. My reflection did the same below. The two of us, the dreamer and the dream, breathing as one. Time lost meaning there. Maybe minutes passed, maybe centuries. Eventually, a faint sound began to rise, the rustle of wind through unseen reeds, the rhythm of distant wings. The river's current began to shift, slow and deliberate. I watched as the stars that had been floating on the surface began to lift, rising upward, one by one, leaving trails of silver mist behind. They ascended into the night sky above me, returning to their rightful home. The river spoke once more, softer now, fading with each word. Every light must fall once, to learn how to rise again. One final star lingered at the surface, brighter than the rest. It floated toward me and hovered before my chest, just above my heart. Its glow merged with mine, sinking gently into my skin. And for a moment, the world was entirely still inside me. I could feel it, the same starlight that had shaped oceans and dreams alike, the same warmth that had always been waiting beneath the noise of living. I realized that even in waking life, this light had never left. It had only been quiet, patient, waiting for me to remember. The current slowed. The stars were gone now, returned to their place in the heavens. The river was once again still, but it shone brighter, as though grateful for being seen. I stepped back toward the shore, each footfall dissolving into ripples of soft light. The air shimmered faintly, and the mist gathered once more around the edges of the dream. Behind me, the river breathed one last time, long, gentle, infinite. Ahead, a faint golden glow began to take form, marking the path toward the next realm. I turned once, whispered a thank you to the quiet waters, and then followed the glow into the mist. And somewhere behind me, unseen but deeply felt, the river whispered one final truth. The stars remember you even when you forget to look up. The dream slows to a gentle heartbeat, softer than silence, warmer than memory. Chapter 8. The garden where time slept. The mist parted like a curtain of breath, and I stepped into stillness. It was not the stillness of emptiness, but of peace, the quiet weight of a place untouched by hurry. Before me lay a vast garden bathed in honeyed moonlight, surrounded by walls of ivy that glowed faintly silver. Every leaf, every petal, every stone shimmered as though caught between moments. The air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and soft rain. Somewhere far off, a nightingale sang a single, lingering note that hung in the air long after the sound itself faded. I looked around and realized something curious. Nothing here was moving. The wind had paused mid-breath. A falling petal hovered in the air beside me, trembling but unmoving. The surface of a nearby pond was so perfectly still it looked like polished glass. Even the ripples of light upon it were frozen, caught in an eternal reflection. Time, it seemed, had chosen to rest here. I began to walk, my steps slow and soundless upon the moss-covered path. Each step sent a faint shimmer of light beneath my feet, as though the ground acknowledged my presence. The still air felt alive, thick with meaning, dense with unseen memory. At the garden's center stood a great sundial made of marble and moonstone. Its gnomon, the thin, triangular shadow caster, was cracked, and no shadow lay upon its surface. Around its base, vines had curled lovingly, weaving through its carvings. I ran my fingers along the cool stone. The symbols etched there were not numbers, but constellations, faintly glowing lines that told stories instead of ours. And in that moment, I understood this was not a garden that marked time. It was a garden that kept it safe, asleep, waiting for those who had forgotten how to be still. I closed my eyes and listened. At first, there was only silence. Then faintly, like a memory surfacing from deep beneath water, came the rhythm of an old clock. Not ticking, not counting, but breathing. It was the sound of time itself, alive and dreaming. When I opened my eyes, the air around me shimmered. Tiny motes of golden light began to rise from the ground, slow, swirling, weightless. They drifted upward and gathered around the sundial, illuminating the carvings until each constellation burned softly like an awakening sky. One of the lights floated toward me, pausing at the height of my heart. I reached out instinctively. It hovered in my palm, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat, and from within its glow I heard a whisper, "Rest a while. You have carried the weight of hours for too long." The voice was neither young nor old. It was the voice of the garden itself, gentle, knowing, endlessly kind. I exhaled slowly, and with that breath, something loosened within me. A long-held tension I hadn't realized was there. My shoulders softened. My heartbeat slowed. The light in my palm brightened. "Time is not your enemy," the voice continued, "but a companion. It sleeps when you rest and wakes when you awaken. It only feels cruel when you run faster than it was meant to move." The words sank deep into me, like water soaking into dry soil. I sat upon the moss beside the sundial and let the stillness settle over me. It was a strange feeling to sit within a moment that did not move. There was no before or after, no sense of losing or gaining. Just being dot all around me, the garden shimmered in its frozen dream. Butterflies suspended in mid-flight. Dewdrops caught forever on blades of grass. A willow's branch arched its leaves reaching toward the pond, but never quite touching. It was beautiful beyond description, the perfection of a breath held between heartbeats. I wondered if this was how the world looked to eternity. Always here, always enough. After some time, though I could not say how long, for the concept itself felt meaningless here. I noticed something new. The sundial began to hum faintly at first, then stronger. Its carvings pulsed one by one, each constellation lighting in a slow, steady rhythm. The garden of sleeping time was awakening. The golden lights that had drifted upward now began to descend, settling gently upon the flowers, the trees, the stones. With each touch, the world began to move again, not quickly, not with haste, but with tender grace. The petal beside me finished its fall, landing softly upon the ground. The pond rippled, catching starlight in motion. The wind sighed, carrying the scent of rain anew, and with it came a realization. Time had not been absent. It had simply paused, waiting for me to remember how to listen. When I rose, I found that my reflection in the pond was no longer my own. It was shifting, showing faces of every age I had ever been, all overlapping gently, smiling faintly through one another. The garden whispered one last time, "You are not passing through time, little one. Time is passing through you." Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the vastness of that truth. I knelt once more and dipped my hand into the pond. The water was warm, alive with gentle current. Ripples spread outward, and as they touched the far edges, the entire garden seemed to shimmer in reply. I could feel it breathing with me, the wind, the earth, the sleeping seconds, now awake again. Then, from beyond the ivy walls, a soft glow began to bloom, pale gold and endless, a doorway forming out of light. It pulsed faintly, beckoning me onward. I looked back once at the sundial, at the flowers just beginning to move again, at the stillness that had taught me peace. "Thank you," I whispered. The garden's leaves rustled in answer, a gentle applause of gratitude, or perhaps farewell. I stepped through the archway of gold, leaving the garden where time slept behind, and as the light wrapped around me, warm and weightless, I heard the garden's voice one last time, soft as a sigh. "Go gently, dreamer. The hours no longer chase you. They follow, softly, in your wake." The dream thins like morning mist, not ending, but gently preparing to become light. Chapter 9. The Bridge Between Dreams. When the golden doorway faded, I found myself standing at the edge of a vast expanse of mist. It stretched endlessly in all directions, glowing faintly with hues of silver and rose, like dawn caught before it fully wakes. The air was warm, filled with the scent of morning rain and faraway stars. Beneath my feet lay smooth stone, cool and ancient. As my eyes adjusted, I realized I was standing upon a bridge, long, narrow, and impossibly delicate, as though woven from light itself. It arched gracefully into the mist, disappearing into both horizon and sky. The silence here was sacred. Even my breath felt softer, slower, as though afraid to disturb whatever dream held this place together. At the far end of the bridge, though I could not see it clearly, I felt something calling, not with sound, but with memory. It was gentle yet irresistible, like the pull of sleep upon weary eyes. I began to walk. The first step was hesitant, but the bridge held firm beneath me. Its surface shimmered with faint patterns, symbols, constellations, echoes of the places I had traveled. I saw the river of remembering flowing within its veins, the orchard's silver blossoms, the garden's golden vines. Every step forward illuminated a new memory beneath my feet, as if the bridge itself had been built from everything I had seen and learned along the way. I realized then, this was the bridge that connected all dreams, the path between what had been and what was yet to be. A soft wind moved through the mist, carrying whispers that seemed to come from every direction. Voices calm, melodic, familiar, threads of all I had met along my journey. You remembered, you rested, you listened. Now, walk gently. Each word brushed against me like a hand upon the shoulder, urging me forward. The bridge curved upward, higher into the mist, until the world below vanished completely. All that remained was endless air and the quiet rhythm of my footsteps. As I walked, I began to notice faint lights flickering round me. Stars, fireflies, or perhaps fragments of dreams floating free. They gathered close, swirling in slow spirals that illuminated the path ahead. Some brushed against my skin, leaving a lingering warmth. It felt like being surrounded by every wish ever whispered before sleep. And then, through the shifting haze, I saw another figure on the bridge. Far ahead, walking toward me, they moved slowly, gracefully, as though they too belonged to the rhythm of this place. For a long time, we simply approached one another, two wanderers drawn, together by the pull of quiet destiny. When we finally met at the center of the bridge, the mist parted just enough to reveal their face. It was my own, not quite as I was now, but softened, serene, radiant, unburdened. A version of me untouched by fear or longing, as though sculpted from calm itself. We regarded one another in silence. No surprise, no fear, only understanding, because in this place, such meetings were natural. The dream had brought me here not to question, but to remember. The other me smiled, a slow, gentle smile that felt like a blessing. "So," they said softly, their voice like rippling water, "you finally stopped running." I nodded. Words seemed unnecessary, almost too loud for this place. They stepped closer, and I noticed that the mist shimmered differently around them, glowing faintly where their feet touched the bridge. Every step they took seemed to soothe the air itself. "Do you know what lies at the end of this bridge?" they asked. I hesitated, then shook my head. "Peace," they whispered, "but not the kind that ends, the kind that begins." They reached out and took my hand. The touch was weightless, yet grounding, warm like candlelight, soft like moonshadow. "Everything you've seen," they continued, "was never outside of you. The river, the garden, the stars, they all live within the space between your breaths. The bridge exists so you can return to them whenever you forget." Their words settled deep into me, quiet and certain. For a while, we stood side by side, gazing into the mist together. Far below, faint echoes shimmered. Scenes from the journey, the silver orchard swaying, the starlit river breathing, the garden awakening. Each one glowed for a moment, then dissolved into light. I realized that the bridge wasn't simply carrying me forward. It was carrying everything with me, every place, every whisper, every gentle truth. None of it was lost. It all existed, perfectly preserved. Within the stillness of now then, slowly, the other me began to fade, not vanishing, but blending into light. When you wake, their voice echoed softly, "The dream won't leave you. It will wait in your pulse, in the quiet between your thoughts. You only need to breathe, and it will answer." I reached out, wanting to hold on, but my fingers met only warm air. The reflection smiled one last time, calm, eternal, and then dissolved into the mist. I stood alone again, but the loneliness had changed. It no longer felt empty, only vast. The mist ahead glowed brighter now, golden and soft. The bridge beneath my feet pulsed with gentle light, guiding me onward. I felt no urgency, no need to rush. The journey itself was the destination. Each step brought me deeper into calm. Each breath carried the weight of peace. And then, somewhere ahead, I began to hear it, the faint hum of a lullaby. A familiar melody, simple and slow, winding through the air like smoke. It was the same tune that had echoed faintly in the first dream, the sound that had called me here. As I reached the end of the bridge, the song grew warmer, surrounding me like sunlight through water. The mist turned to golden haze, and through it I saw the outline of something beyond, soft hills, twilight skies, and a single tree glowing with light. It felt like home. I stood at the final arch of the bridge, breathing in deeply, the scent of dream and dawn mingling into one. Behind me, the mist whispered farewell. Ahead, the light pulsed gently, waiting. I closed my eyes, smiled faintly, and stepped forward into the heart of the dream's final piece. Chapter 10. The awakening, the golden glow that awaited me beyond the bridge unfolded like the first breath of morning. Warm, weightless light filled the air, so pure and soft that it seemed to hum with stillness. There was no sun here, and yet it felt like sunrise. I stepped forward slowly. The ground beneath me was no longer stone or earth, but something alive, light woven into gentle ripples, responding to each movement I made. With every step, circles of faint luminescence spread outward, as though the world itself was breathing with me. The air smelled of rain that had never fallen and stars that had never burned out. Everything shimmered with meaning, not the kind that needed words, but the kind you simply understood. I came to a small clearing. At its center stood the tree I had glimpsed through the mist, tall and ancient, its branches stretching outward like the slow unfolding of time itself. Its leaves glowed softly, silver and gold and pale blue, whispering with a rhythm that felt almost human when the wind passed through them. I could hear voices, laughter, sighs, fragments of every dream I had ever known. The orchard, the river, the stars, the mirror self, all seemed to exist within its shimmering branches. I approached the tree and placed a hand upon its trunk. It was warm, alive, pulsing with the same rhythm as my own heartbeat, and then the world deepened. Images rippled through the light, I saw every chapter of my journey, now layered with hidden meaning. The river that had shown reflections was not water, but memory. The orchard of silver blossoms was not a place, but forgiveness. The garden of gold was awareness, and the bridge between dreams, it was understanding. Every world I had wandered through was never meant to be reached, only remembered. They were pieces of me, sleeping within my own stillness, waiting to be recognized. The realization came not as thought, but as peace. There was nothing left to seek, nothing left to fix, because in the rhythm of this dream, everything, even silence, made sense. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I heard the echo of my own breath, deep, slow, steady. Then beneath it, a second sound, a faint, steady pulse. It wasn't the heartbeat of the dream. It was mine, somewhere far away, beyond the veil of this luminous world. I could feel the weight of a blanket across my legs, the warmth of real air moving through my chest. The dream was thinning, but this time, I didn't cling to it. I understood now that dreams weren't meant to be held, only trusted. They were the language of the part of us that knows peace, the part that never sleeps even when we do. A gentle wind stirred. The trees' branches lowered slightly, as if in farewell. Tiny motes of golden light drifted down from its leaves, resting upon my shoulders, my hair, my heart. Take them with you, a whisper said, not from the tree, not from the air, but from within me. So you may remember what silence means. I smiled. The dream began to dissolve around me, each fragment softening into brightness. The ground beneath my feet faded into air. The sky became pure light. And then I heard a final voice, gentle, distant, and utterly familiar. You have always been dreaming. You have always been awake. The sound echoed softly as the world unraveled into gold. I opened my eyes. For a moment, I didn't move. The ceiling above was faintly illuminated by the pale light of dawn. Curtains whispered softly against the early breeze. Everything was still. My mind was clear, not blank, but calm. I felt as though I had been somewhere vast and kind, and it had left its fragrance behind. I sat up slowly, feeling the weight of my body return, the gentle stiffness of reality settling back in. And yet, it felt different, lighter. I noticed the smallest things, the rhythm of my breathing, the pulse in my fingertips, the hush between the sounds of morning. Even the silence carried warmth. For a long time, I simply sat there, breathing in the soft light of a new day. And as I did, the memory of the dream flickered gently behind my eyes. Not as images now, but as feeling. The peace of the river, the reflection of the self, the golden bridge between waking and sleep. All of it lived within the stillness I now carried inside me. I realized that the world had not changed overnight. I had remembered something I'd forgotten. That calm is not a place we travel to. It is something we allow to happen. When I lay back down again, just for a moment before rising, I let my eyes close once more. And though I was fully awake, I could still feel the soft hum of that dream world, gentle, vast, forgiving. A small smile formed without thought. The world outside the window was stirring now, faint birdsong, the whisper of morning light on rooftops, a single car humming distantly. And yet, even amidst all that motion, everything made sense, because now I understood. When I slept, the world didn't change. I did, and in that change, in that letting go, the world finally made sense.